by owning it all. What do central banks do? What has been the goal of central banks since their inception? Okay, most people have no idea. Why were central banks even created? Because they want to create a better world. They want to make a prosperous world for everyone. Why is the entire world and every single developed nation around the world, including its citizenry, burdened beyond absolute belief in debt? Because that's the system. Okay, everyone, here's the data, and they tell us what it is. Look, they're telling us that inflation is, how many times have we heard peaking, the word peaking, inflation's peaking. It's peaking, I don't know, must be 10 times over the last year or so. And every time they tell us it's peaking, it continues to rise. Is the pace slowing? Maybe, but it continues to rise nonetheless here. And they want us to believe that by some miracle.
Greg Mannarino, the founder of TradersChoice.net and a financial expert, cautions it's a farce. The Fed hiking rates is meant to destroy demand and crush the consumer. It's not meant to curb inflation. On this video, Greg Mannarino said, contracting the money supply is the only way to stop inflation in its tracks, but it's a major secret the system doesn't want you to know. Unfortunately, not enough people are waking up, and as time goes on, this mechanism will advance significantly further. He somberly predicts inflation continues to climb. This is the central banks playing their game, and it's not going to end. In his latest interview, Mannarino reiterates his earlier claim, adding, they are globally eradicating a whole class of people. Because they want to become the lender and buyer of last resort, he claims central banks intend to kill the economy. Everyone owns gold, thus it doesn't require central banks to provide security as a store of wealth, according to Mannarino. He declares, silver is the most undervalued asset in the world. But until we hear from Mannarino, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, if you haven't already, so we will provide daily content to keep you updated on the latest news.
Is not going to stop. It's designed. Inflation is going to continue to rise as central banks fulfill their end game. The central banks have an end game, and that is to continue to inflate, period. A central bank's power resides in one thing, its ability to inflate, and they're buying it all right now. Central banks have one product. Their product is debt. The more debt they issue to the world, the stronger they become. Henceforth, why you got stopgap measures here in the United States to fund the government. Henceforth, why you have a $1.7 trillion spending package with all kinds of pork in it, including funding a war and whatever else they got to do here. The whole nonsensical, I'm going to say, dog shit narrative, how central banks really want to combat inflation and they're doing so by raising rates. It's a farce. Okay. Raising rates is meant to kill demand and henceforth crush the consumer. It's not meant to curtail inflation. How do you control inflation? Actually, you contract the money supply, but we don't hear a word about that. Fed presidents like Bullard is telling people, oh, look, the money supply is contracting. You can see that because people are pulling cash out of their bank accounts. People are pulling cash out of their money market accounts. Two metrics that are utilized to measure the global money supply. But the fact of the matter is people are pulling their cash out of these accounts because they're trying to make ends meet. At the same time, what are they doing? They're borrowing beyond their eyeballs here with regard to their debt burdens, household debt, consumer debt, all the stuff we talked about in the past is coming to light. And everything that I'm talking about here is also going to come to light at one point, but it's too late. Well, because none of the data, I don't trust any of the data at all. First of all, there's no actual verifying agency. It's like, okay, everyone, here's the data, and they tell us what it is. Look, they're telling us that inflation is. How many times have we heard peaking, the word peaking, inflation's peaking. It's peaking, I don't know, must be 10 times over the last year or so. And every time they tell us it's peaking, it continues to rise. Is the pace slowing? Maybe, but it continues to rise nonetheless here. And they want us to believe that by some miracle at one point, this eventual raising of rates is going to crush demand so hard that it does bring down inflation here. Look, what did we hear right out of the mouth of the Federal Reserve? They need to kill jobs. They said this. One of these Fed president freaks came out, I can't remember the name, I think it was Fed President Daly, explained that in order for people in order for inflation to drop, people need to lose their jobs. How about we start off with these things over there? We don't need these organizations. Imagine a system, seriously, that is governed and controlled by private institutions that have their own interest in mind here. And why are we seeing things like consumer credit balloon, the global debt bubble hyper balloon? Because that's the nature of the beast. It's a debt-based system. And that's how it functions. It can't function any other way. And that's a big secret too. You don't learn this stuff in school that we have this. I mean, I bet you if they put me before an economics class and I asked people, for example, okay, what drives the world economy? That most people are going to say it's supply and demand. No, it's not at all. It's fear and greed. Fear is stronger. And that's why you see all these fluctuations here in the market, especially the debt market lately, which has given us warning sign after warning sign of how illiquid it actually is. And what are we seeing here? This phenomenon lately, global bond yields were rising. Now they're dropping. Now they're stabilizing. Who's doing that? Who's doing that? This is, again, central banks playing their game by owning it all. What do central banks do? What has been the goal of central banks since their inception? Okay, most people have no idea. Why were central banks even created? Because they want to create a better world? They want to make a prosperous world for everyone? Why is the entire world and every single developed nation around the world, including its citizenry, burdened beyond absolute belief in debt? Because that's the system. Well, what they're going to continue to do, not popular, meaning what? What has the Federal Reserve admitted to us here? That they are trying to crush demand. By crushing demand, they're hurting the consumer. So people are not going to be happy dealing with a rapidly deteriorating economic situation here. Small businesses having to shutter here. People, again, being forced to borrow just to make ends meet. What they're doing here, all right, is eliminating an entire class of people on a worldwide scale. And this has been something that's been going on for quite a long time, but it's accelerating as we move forward here. People who are former members of the middle class, just to maintain that illusion that they're still in the middle class, what are they doing? They're borrowing more and more and more. Meanwhile, they're saving nothing. And do they think maybe down the line there's going to be a price to pay? No. So central banks here are assuring, and it's in our face, that the global economy is going to continue to shrink. And that's going to pressure a lot of people. People are going to be losing their jobs by the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands here. We already know what these major corporations are doing. Layoffs, by the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. You think this is going to stop anytime soon? No, this is what they're talking about. The Fed is in here. Look, what are they going to do here? They've been raising rates for many, many months. We haven't seen anything dramatic happen with inflation. It's still rising, okay? So that is an environment that people are not happy. So they're killing demand, killing the man or the woman here, pressuring them to survive, or at least attempt to survive, in a deteriorating economic situation which they're bringing about. Why did central banks want to kill the economy? Very simple. They want to kill the economy so they can become the lender and buyer of last resort. What are central banks doing? They issue debt through one door and then they buy it back through another. This mechanism has been going on and on and on and on, and this is how central banks are gaining more power against central banking. Central banking, in my view, is a curse upon the world. How can we possibly allow private institutions to run the financial system and henceforth the economy? Where is that written anywhere? It wasn't what our forefathers envisioned here in the United States. No, we were supposed to have a commodity-backed system or a wealth-based system which would enrich everyone. Okay, but no, we lost that. We all gave it up. Where's the revolt? Where are the people on the streets? They're being distracted. Look at this, focus on that. It's just nonsensical. But again, they got the people where they want them, by the throat. And that pressure that what Powell's talking about, yeah, it's going to get a lot worse. It's not getting better. There is no rainbow out there on the horizon here. The global economy is going to contract faster. People are going to suffer more, and unfortunately become more dependent on the system. That's what they need, more people to become dependent on it. And then what are they going to do? Eventually, this whole thing, it's not sustainable. Gold and silver, why? Look, in my view, this is very simple, and I've been telling people this for the longest time. these are units of wealth. They have been so for thousands and thousands of years, and we don't need any central banker to reassure us of that. If we understand that this current debt-based economic model is eventually going to implode on itself. And of course, they're going to issue another system like it. It doesn't matter. If you're holding physical gold, physical silver, my favorite asset of all time, physical silver. And I tell people, why does Greg Mannarino say that silver is the most undervalued asset in the world? I just look at a couple of very simple metrics, and I urge people to just do a little homework on their own. Look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average gold ratio, and then the gold silver ratio. You look at these things, you will see how undervalued silver is, and gold too, and platinum and palladium as well. I own all the metals. Everybody knows that. I'm an open book. So, but look, that's why these are real units. These are real things, and why people need to have exposure to not just, in my opinion at least, gold, silver. They need exposure to commodities because they're real things. Right now, the environment is pretty straightforward. The stock market, although we are off record highs, still remains the place to be for a lot of reasons because central banks are going to continue to support the system, in my view. Okay. But until this risk-on system, meaning cash moving into equities, reverses, and it's going to in a very hardcore way, people need to be taking the opposite side of that trade and looking at commodities, because how this is going to play out is very simple. It's very easy. We have a debt market hyper bubble. Suppressed rates have caused distortions across the spectrum of asset classes, unlike anything we've ever seen in the history of the freaking world. Okay, now that's going to correct at one point. At one point, we're going to get a meltdown here, and the debt market rates are going to spike in an uncontrolled fashion, and no amount of debt buying by central banks is going to be able to fix the situation, because the currency is just the purchasing power of the currency is already getting sucked out. It's going to get sucked out very, very rapidly. The rising of rates in an uncontrolled fashion is just going to melt down the global equity markets. Okay, it's the polar opposite of what we've been seeing. Suppressed rates have inflated stock market bubbles around the world, reinflated a housing bubble, which is cracking, quite obviously. But again, debt market implosion kills global equity markets, and cash is just going to move from the debt market and from the equity market into commodities because they're real things. And then you're going to see risk on, turn risk off. Who knows what the value in dollars could actually be, because commodities are priced in dollars when this whole thing really does turn around. Is JEPI, equity premium income. It pays a monthly dividend. The dividend is a hedge. I mean, at least you have the opportunity to maybe make some cash if the market continues, if it does go higher. And I don't think central banks are done. I also think the equity markets are going to underperform moving forward. I don't think we're going to see any big moves here or there, but look, all this depends on the debt market. Again, look, when people ask me about the stock market, okay, it's all well and good and fun to look at and maybe be invested in, but it's the drivers. We got to look at the global debt market. The global debt market is the thing that sets the price action for everything else. As a matter of fact, if you could consider that the stock markets of the world themselves are derivatives. They derive value from what's happening in the debt market. If in fact central banks manage to keep rates suppressed and give the resemblance of some kind of stability in the debt market. For example, we don't see a 10-year yield making a yo-yo kind of action. We just see it kind of remaining steady. You see a US dollar on a relative strength basis remain steady. This would be an environment where people would want to put cash to work again in the equity market.
Do you agree that price doesn't matter in the short term? Leave a comment if you found the content interesting. Click in like button. It really helps the channel find viewers similar to you. If you're new to the channel or haven't subscribed to it, click in subscribe button. We post content daily to keep you up to date on the current market and news. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.